Reddit by Reddit recap. What unsolved mystery has absolutely no plausible explanation? I once did a magic trick in front of 20 people as a teenager. We had orchestrated it. So there were 2 of us. So the trick is, I asked someone from the audience to pick a card. Hold it above their head in front of the crowd. But card back facing me. So the entire crowd sees the card. Now someone on the other side of the window behind the crowd also sees the card. And with the crowd facing forwards, they don't see him. So he plasters the card from another deck on the window. And when he's done doing that, I throw the entire deck at the window. And lo and behold, their card is now stuck on the other side of the window. What happened surprised not only the crowd, but myself and my co-magician as well. I throw the deck and the exact card is not only plastered on the other side of the window, it is also stuck on our side of the window, right next to it. My mind was blown and I still can't explain it to this day. We played it as a part of the trick. So nobody in that crowd knows what sort of black wizardry went down that day. I think a dead magician was effing with you. We lived in a B-level house with a chest freezer in the basement and the kitchen on the 2nd floor. When I was younger, I was a teenager, I was asked to bring turtles upstairs so my mom could make a casserole. I went and grabbed them and came upstairs. When I got upstairs, the tater tots were no longer in my hands. And my mom asked where they were. I thought I had just spaced out and forgot them. So I went back downstairs and they weren't in the freezer anymore. Searched literally every square inch, nook and cranny between the chest freezer and the kitchen and they were not anywhere. They never ever turned up. To this day my mom thinks I was playing a dumb prank on her. My most plausible explanation is that we live in a computer simulation and they got accidentally bugged out of it. This is a personal one that happened not so long ago. The first time my girlfriend and I went to a motel. She took her necklace off and put it in a nightstand near the bed. A few hours after we left, she realized she wasn't wearing it and must have forgotten it back at the motel. I called and no one from the cleaning crew had seen it. Well, tough luck. We just assumed someone found it. It had a silver chain and a somewhat expensive pendant, and kept it for themselves. The following day I went back to my hometown. I live 2h away, and apparently that was the end of it. Thing is, 2 or 3 weeks later I met with her again. We were just starting to see each other at the time, and since I'm from another city, I stay at my grandmother's house on weekends. Just as I was leaving the house for our date, I overhear my mother, aunt and grandma talking. They were questioning themselves about something they found and couldn't figure out who owned it. That something? The effing necklace. Apparently my grandma found it literally in the middle of her bed, strewn over the sheets. I took it and gave it back to my GF, who had bought another one after she lost it. So now she has 2 identical necklaces. I've never been so dumbfounded in my life. There's no way the necklace was accidentally in my jeans pocket or something because it only reappeared 2 weeks after it was lost. I would have found them in my pockets in the meantime. My grandmother had never met my GF before and there's literally no way someone could have found it at the motel and sent it back to us, because I hadn't given an address or a phone number except for my cell phone to the motel staff. And if that wasn't enough, why in the middle of her bed? About 2 years ago my sister was home alone while my mum was at work and I was at school. I finished early that day and was home at around 1 PM. I was talking to my sister and she casually mentioned my mum came home for a while. Right away I thought that was odd because my mum works a few towns over and even if she came home on her lunch break she'd have to leave to go back by the time she got here, but I thought maybe she had an appointment or something. So I asked my sister if she said anything. Here is what my sister says happened. She was upstairs in her room when she heard the front door unlock. So she walked over to the stairs to see who it was. The stairs were facing the front door so you could see it from the top of the stairs, and saw my mum taking her coat off and hanging it up. She looked over at my sister without saying anything, after which my sister was just like, oh okay, it's just mum, and went back to her room. She also didn't hear her leave. When she told me this I was pretty spooked because my mum wouldn't have not said a word. She'd say hi at the very least. I proceeded to call my mum to ask her if she'd been home recently just to make sure, and just like I thought, she hadn't been home since she left that morning. We still don't know who or what my sister saw, but I was afraid of being home alone for the next 2 weeks lol. Maybe a lookalike intruder who decided to GTFO after such a power move from your sister. Just checking her and going back to business. In college. Eating breakfast with 3 friends. All have cereal with milk. One friend, K, also has a glass of milk. He's seated directly across from me. I watch him pick up the glass and drop it onto his lap. It disappears from my view as it strikes the table. Absolutely no reaction from him. We ask K if he's okay. K has no recollection of the glass of milk. We search the immediate area and no milk anywhere. No glass anywhere. 3 of us remember the glass of milk. K has no recollection to this day. I made chicken soft tacos for dinner last week. Halfway through cooking realized we didn't have tortillas. I sent husband to the store to buy soft flour tortillas. Dinner is ready, so I tell my 2 teenage boys to dish up. Shredder chicken is on the stove. All the fixings are on the island, including the unopened bag of tortillas. Husband and I wait in the other room for the boys to finish dishing up before we get ours because crowded. Boys come sit in the living room with 2 burritos each. Husband and I go into kitchen and grab plates. I reach to grab a tortilla. The bag is sealed. Opened. I look around totally confused. Examine the bag. No tears anywhere. I look in the trash for an empty bag. Nope. Ask the boys where they got their tortillas. They both said from the bag on the counter. I asked. The new bag? My oldest says yes. He opened it. What? A little late, but this story still makes me sleep with the lights on whenever I think of it. My sister and I were upstairs at my grandparents' house where we lived. We were playing some Disney princess game on our TV. All of a sudden we hear a loud piece of glass shatter. It seriously sounded like someone dropped a chandelier. My uncle, who was visiting at the time, came sprinting up the stairs because he thought we were being assaulted. He checked in the next room that the sound came from and nothing had fallen. There were no glass shards anywhere. Kinda creeped him out as well. I have a personal mystery. When I got home from uni and before I found a job, I had a period of time where I stayed at my family home. Due to being home alone often during this time, I tended to be the one who collected the mail and did odd home jobs. One day we had a particularly large amount of letters and parcel for my brother's birthday, and because 2 trips are for weak people, I struggled and carried them all into the house. I managed to throw the letters onto the table, but about half slipped onto the floor. This is important. Thinking screw it. I carry the box upstairs to the office and come back down to pick the letters up. Yet, when I come back into the kitchen, there are no letters anywhere. Confused. I check every downstairs table and eventually the mailbox. Nothing at all. Finally I go back into the kitchen and notice one of the kitchen chairs is slightly pulled out from under the table. I pull it all the way out, and under the cushion on the seat is a neat pile of the letters. There was no one but me at home for a few hours before this. Utterly confused till this day. A ghost stole them to prank you, but felt bad after realizing they were for your brother's birthday. To make up for it, ghost friend stacked them neatly. But it had to be in a weird place, so their prank wasn't a total bust. When I was 7 or 8, we had this neighbor who was a super nice old lady that would give us snacks and talk to us through her window. She was agoraphobic and never, ever left the house. Her kids would come by every other day or so to check up on her, and everyone in the neighborhood knew them. One day me and my friends were outside playing like always. When her son comes to bring her groceries like always, he comes out and asks if we've talked to his mom, and we say we haven't seen her in a day or 2. That sweet little old lady vanished from her house. Apparently no trace of her. Family was around Dallas after that, was freaking out. I moved away a few years later, but they never found out what happened. It wasn't till I was an adult that I realized how effed that whole situation was. When I still lived at home and came back from a night out, my mother would often be up reading, and if I wasn't too tired I'd sit with her a bit and chat before going to bed. This was regular occurrence for years. A couple years after I moved out, I get a text from my mom one Sunday morning asking where I'd gone. Was a little surprised as I was just in my apartment. She tells me that last night I came home late and we chatted for a bit, and she was surprised that I had left the house so early in the morning. Now occasionally, I would still stop by my parents' place to crash for the night depending on where I was in the city, but I'd always let them know first. Figured my mom has just dreamt this. So I call her and explain that I wasn't there and ask what we talked about. She summarizes the conversation and gives me details about things she shouldn't have known about my night out egg. What was going on in the lives of the friends I had seen that night. Never figured it out, but now my mom teases and says she knows what I'm up to all the time. I was late for an appointment one day and was speeding up a hill with a big curve to the right. The direction I was going. Almost as soon as I got around the curve, I saw there was an accident in front of me, blocking both lanes on my side. Since there were only one or two other cars stuck behind it, it must have just happened, because there were no emergency vehicles there yet. To the right of me was a sidewalk where people were standing talking, and to my left was oncoming traffic in the other two lanes. So I couldn't go around it, and I was going too fast to be able to stop in time. I knew if I relaxed I was less likely to be as severely injured. So I quickly shut my eyes and relaxed as much as I could. When I opened my eyes, I could see the crash behind me in my rearview mirror, and I was continuing along an empty, on my side, road. This happened about 35 years ago, and to this day I have no idea how that happened. Best comment of the day. My sweatshirt had long strings and my friend was pretending to joke me and stuff. I'm always kind to kids that are a bit weird, and this one weird kid came up and was like, "Lemme show you something." So she gave him the strings and he started pulling really hard. I starting to cry, but was able to get my hand under the strings and tries my hardest to pull against him. He kept on telling me to let go, but I just kept saying, "No, you're trying to kill me." He was laughing the entire time and my friend was just frozen. After about a minute the teacher noticed and told him to stop. I asked to go to the bathroom and splashed my face with water. Shit was scary. I didn't start panicking just because I thought he was weird. I just had this weird gut feeling, like he meant no good.